Why Canadian and American families are moving to Paraguay. Today we want to talk about some of the biggest challenges of the West, the rising cost of living, tyranny, and a few other problems. Let's start out talking about the ever-increasing cost of living. This is one of the biggest problems that I am seeing, hearing what our Canadian and American clients are saying about living in Canada and America. Since the past pandemic, everything's gotten more expensive. Rent, utilities, food, insurance, you name it. Everything's gotten more expensive. While in a place like Paraguay, a lot of things have stayed pretty much the same, specifically electricity. Now, certain things have also gone up in Paraguay, so I'm not saying it's not happening in Paraguay. It certainly is happening. However, you coming from North America into Paraguay, you're bringing a greater purchasing power with you into the country. And there are a number of problems here, right? So just from a cost of living perspective, and talking to some Canadian clients recently, we have helped Canadian families move from Canada into Paraguay, and many of them are really happy because they love how laid back Paraguay is. It's a very laid back country that suits a ton of Canadians. It makes fun living in Paraguay. And some of our Canadian clients, they have large families, 3 children, 4 children, even 5 children, it's not unheard of. So, and these people are really the biggest stars ever. Like the people who have really large families these days, where everything is difficult, these people are really our heroes, our idols, if you will. Making a quick comparison between the cost to rent an apartment in Canada and Paraguay, so many of our clients have managed to reduce their monthly rent anywhere from 50 all the way up to 70 to 80%, okay, depending on where they relocated to in Paraguay. And this is a tremendous difference. And this is just rent, okay? So if you are used to paying $1,500 a month for a shoebox condo in Toronto, or maybe even $2,000 for a shoebox condo in Toronto, and then you go to Paraguay where you only pay like $400 to $500, that's a magnificent difference, my friend. Now we're talking obviously about singles, like that's okay, but even if, let's say in Canada you're used to paying, some people are used to paying anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 for rent every month, and sometimes even higher than that. So if you can cut that down, let's say your rent is $5,000 a month in Canada, and you can cut that down to like $1,500 or $2,000, plus you get something that's bigger, that's nicer, why not? And you can do that in Paraguay. Let's talk about food. This is incredibly inexpensive in Paraguay. You can go out to any of the shopping malls and you can have a nice meal for $3 to $5. It's very doable. If you want to have something really nice and then really big, you can probably pay $10 to $15, okay? Yes, that's a bit more, but you're eating in one of the nicest, shopping malls located in one of the nicest neighborhoods in the whole country, where you have a great atmosphere, where there's good energy, it's warm, right? So you do have just more to gain when moving from Canada to Paraguay. And what about the cost of services? This is another big component, if you want to get your nails done, if you're a mother of 4 or 5 and you want to get your nails done, or if you want to get a pedicure, right? If you want to get a massage, if you want to get a new haircut, In Paraguay, everything costs a fraction of what you used to pay back home in Canada. It's just a matter of fact. Plus, you get out of the bad cold weather. Snowbirds, they're moving down south for a good reason. It's no fun being in a cold 6 to 8 months out of the year. That's no fun. You're missing out. And in the colder countries, also talking about Central and Northern Europe, Russia, of course, and Canada, like the people who live in those countries, they are looking forward, every single year. They can't wait for summer. They can't wait for summer to pop up, because it's the one time of the year where they actually get to enjoy life. Because it's warm outside, you can do more recreational activities, you can go biking, you can go jogging without worrying about I'm catching a cold. You can do so much. You can go swimming, you can swim in the pool. It's just so much you can do that you can't do back home in Canada. And what about all the tyranny that Canadians have experienced lately? Especially with Canada's leadership wanting to turn the country into pretty much a communist place, it's no fun. You know, when you heard people talk about Canada, going back in time like 10, 15 years, 20 years, you heard people talk about Canada, and Canada was envisioned, you know, it was pictured as this free place. Canada used to be a place of liberty. But given what happened during the past crisis, how did leadership decided to treat its own people? Some people were penalized financially in terms of freedom. Some people were imprisoned for very insignificant, trivial things. You ask yourself, why do I want to stay in this country, you know? The weather used to be a problem, and it always was a problem in Canada, but now also with the tyranny that's going on, it's like, I can have better. And Canadians are thinking that every day, not just once, not just twice. They're thinking about it all the time, and it's like, you can go somewhere better, nicer, warmer, where you have more freedom, and why wouldn't you do that? Especially if you can save a lot of money in taxes, a lot of money in living costs, you know, and that's another big point where Canadians can really save a ton of money by utilizing Paraguay's territorial tax system, where you don't really pay income tax on foreign sourced income. So this is great. You lower your living costs, you get out of the bad weather, you pay literally no taxes, and you live in a place that's free, where you have peace of mind. I mean, this is unbeatable. In fact, this is unheard of. Plus, Paraguay is a country that really wants you. You don't want to go to a country in the Eastern Hemisphere where you're not welcome, where the country keeps changing the visa policies like crazy. You don't want to go there. And what about Americans? You know, we're working with American families who are leaving America for Paraguay. And many of them are picking up a plan B. Many of them are rotating now. They're spending more time in Paraguay. They're spending maybe 3 to 6 months out of the year in Paraguay. Some have relocated to Paraguay permanently. So there's really everything, you know. There are people of all shapes, colors, sizes, ages, you know, life circumstances who choose Paraguay. Tons of Americans. Like Canada, America has a very unique problem. It is tyranny. Unfortunately, and it's sad to say because America is such a beautiful country, it is a land of opportunity in so many ways, but just being like an average person, you know, and having to deal, for instance, you know, we're talking to clients who have to deal with the yearly tax reporting. You know, being outside of the United States does not exclude you from having to report your foreign income, your foreign accounts. You have to do all of this regardless of where you're located for as long as you stay American. And this is a big problem that people have, especially if you have more bank accounts overseas than you have back home. You have more financial accounts, you have more assets, and you have to file the FBAR. You know, that's a pain in the neck, especially if you're not really big. Let's say you're middle class to upper middle class, but you're not rich. And you know, dealing with this stuff every year is a big hassle. It's a headache, it adds to your anxiety, so you have to do it. Now, you're not gonna get rid of this until you renounce US citizenship, and this is a decision that you have to make for yourself. But by going overseas, you know, you can utilize the FEIN, the Foreign Earned Income Exclusion, which is applicable to Americans as well as American couples who live abroad and who don't spend time in America or very little time, and who have residency abroad, where you can qualify for, you know, this tax break. Right now it's about $120,000, $126,000 a year, and if you are married, right, if you're married to an American, it's double. So that's great. So you got what? About $250,000 to play with, where you can consume that money free, pretty much, you know, tax-free overseas. And if you're in Paraguay, where you don't pay taxes on foreign sourced income, right, you don't pay taxes in America on that money, plus in Paraguay, since Paraguay has a territorial tax system, you also don't surrender that money to the local authorities in Paraguay. I mean, you can consume a lot of that income tax-free. I mean, this is fantastic news, right? You can save so much money. And for an American, it's the same as for a Canadian. You know, moving to Paraguay will do you a lot of good. It will save a lot of money in taxes. It will save a lot of money in living costs. And if you just follow a plan for like a number of years, you know, you can become a millionaire by living in Paraguay, assuming that you keep the same income and, you know, you are able to cut down on your living costs, and you're able to take advantage of the foreign earned income exclusion. Even if you just do it for a number of years, I mean, you can become a millionaire or a multi-millionaire. You know, of course, if your income is more than what the foreign earned income exclusion is, then you have to pay income tax on it anyway, but I'm still saying you have this free allowance, which is really cool, and you don't have to surrender US citizenship to have this privilege. So that's great. So Americans have a lot to gain by moving to a territorial tax system country like Paraguay. Our clients are echoing the same thing, whether we're talking about Canadian clients, American clients, people from Australia, New Zealand, from the UK. Now we even have people from like Scotland and England, who are massively complaining about some of the legislation that's being passed in Britain, and they're like, I can't wait to get the hell out of there. So to them, it's not just about the taxes. In fact, in many cases, the taxes is secondary. It's mostly about the peace of mind, gaining more personal freedom, or should I rather say regaining personal freedom. And you can do that in Paraguay, and we're going to talk now about why Paraguay is great too for pretty much anybody, not just Americans and Canadians. I know that you guys are the main subject of this video, but still, there's so much more to gain, by living in a country, in a peaceful country where the government leaves you alone. There's so much more to gain from living in Paraguay than just reducing your taxes. I mean, Paraguay's government leaves you alone. The amount of personal freedom that you can get by living in a place like Paraguay is just amazing, and it's like going back in time in America, probably going back, to the 19th century or early 20th century, where you had that kind of freedom where nothing was really tracked, government didn't bother you. Yes, you had to pay taxes in the 20th century, and during many times in history, but it's never been as problematic. It's never been as strict as it is today. And in Paraguay, it's very lenient approach, and the taxes, even local taxes, they're low. They're capped at 10%. We're talking corporate, we're talking the local taxes, the personal income taxes, they're capped at 10%, so you're never going to pay 30%. So this is great. You can do a lot of things in Paraguay. You can start a business, anything that you want to do locally. You want to start exporting products to Brazil and Argentina, you can set up a company utilizing Paraguay's maquila law, where you may qualify for a 1% corporate tax rate. Of course, that's on net profit generated from within Paraguay, from within this concept. And of course, if you have overseas income, foreign sourced income, then that's tax free in Paraguay. So they're just so many benefits, there's so much incentive for a North American, for a Canadian, for an American to relocate to Paraguay. And many people who relocate never go back because the amount of freedom that you have, this is hard to give up. Being one of the Nomad Elite really makes you think about certain things twice, because once you committed to a country, you kind of have you're not married, but you have kind of like an engagement, so you want to pick the jurisdictions you commit to carefully. You don't want to commit to jurisdictions blindly. You want to really carefully select the countries where you get the most benefits and where you can also contribute in certain ways. It must be like a value for value exchange, and Paraguay is a great place. Paraguay loves Americans and Canadians, so this is also great. And you're also pretty much in the same time zone. You're probably 2 hours ahead, up to 4 to 5 hours ahead, depending on where you're located in the United States of America or in Canada, but you're not far apart. It's not as if you were to move to Asia or if you were to move to Europe, where you have to deal with much larger time zone differences. What's also great for Americans is that you can own guns legally, okay? In Paraguay, Americans can own guns, can own firearms legally. So this is great because the Second Amendment is not strong in many countries. America is one of the fortunate countries. And in Paraguay, once you have residency, you can get a firearm legally. Of course, it has to be registered, you need to get a license, but it is doable. It's not like you are in Vietnam or in the Philippines where you cannot easily own a gun. I mean, who owns a gun in Vietnam or even in Thailand? I mean, it's very unheard of, unless you have a gun store, you sell firearms or you're some kind of government official or you work for law enforcement. Yes, then you may have a gun, but under most circumstances, everyday citizens cannot own guns in Asia. And that's why I always make this powerful distinction between Southeast Asia and Latin America, where you just have more liberties. We're talking about getting residency and also being able to own firearms. All right, if all this sounds good to you and you're ready to secure a Plan B in Paraguay, you can get Paraguayan residency without committing a lot, so you don't have to move right away, because I know that's a big decision. You don't have to do that. You can get residency in Paraguay and spend 1 day in the country, once a year to keep temporary residency, and then you can convert to permanent residency, which is for life, okay? So it's like a US green card. It's like as if you were to immigrate to any great developed country where you get permanent residency. And Paraguay also offers a path to citizenship. So if you want to get residency in Paraguay, while it's still relatively easy, you want to consider working with Nomad Elite, the #1 relocation agency in Paraguay. We have helped people from all walks of life secure residency in Paraguay, relocate their lives to Paraguay, and also incorporate companies in the country. If you're interested in working with us in this month, okay, in the month of May 2024, we run a special where we offer our 3 packages at a significant discount. And trust me, there is a package that suits your needs. All you need to do is click on the link below the video to get started now. As always, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching Nomad Elite. We really look forward to welcoming you in Paraguay and helping you create the life that you deserve. We see you on the next video.